All right, so today we're diving into something a little different. A 1973 crime film called The Friends of Eddie Coyle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and we've got this great in-depth review as our guide. And you know what we really want to get to the bottom of is why this film, which honestly at first glance might seem like your typical crime story,
Right.
is considered like such an underrated and like truly authentic look into this whole criminal world, especially when you compare it to those like,
Right.
the big flashy gangster movies.
The more glamorous ones.
Exactly. Yeah, the ones we all know.
Yeah.
So if you're into crime films that kind of ditch all the glam and just lay bare like the harsh reality of these guys at the bottom,
Nitty-gritty.
then you're in for a treat today. This deep dive into this review should leave you with some real food for thought.
Well, you know what really jumps out at you right away about this film?
Yeah.
Is how it kind of sidesteps those typical crime movie tropes.
Yeah. Right.
It's not all about crazy heists and charming anti-heroes.
Yeah.
Like some of those action-packed blockbusters we talked about.
Right.
The Friends of Eddie Coyle is more of a slow burn.
Okay.
A real character study. And the review makes it crystal clear that this isn't some romanticized picture of the underworld.
Right.
It's portrayed as this bleak,
Yeah.
unforgiving world where loyalty is pretty much a fantasy.
Yeah.
And betrayal, well, it feels almost inevitable.
So speaking of grim realities, let's talk about the main man himself.
Yeah.
Eddie Coyle, Robert Mitchum.
Oh, yeah.
The review really emphasizes how he's not your stereotypical cool and collected gangster.
Right.
We're introduced to him as this tired, low-level gunrunner who's basically staring down a prison sentence.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and that instantly sets a different tone, right?
Oh, I've seen.
He's not on top of the world. He's feeling the heat.
Yeah.
And according to the review, that's where the real tension of the film comes from.
Okay.
Eddie's stuck in this incredibly dangerous position. He's trying to cut a deal with this ATF agent, Dave Foley, while at the same time supplying guns to a crew of bank robbers.
Whoa. Talk about walking a tightrope.
Right. And this is where Mitchum's performance really shines.
Yeah.
Which the review praises as like one of his best.
Wow.
He just completely embodies this sense of exhaustion, of being worn down by this life. The review uses words like defeated, even painfully aware of his own insignificance.
That's heavy.
Yeah, it's a world away from those larger-than-life criminals we usually see in films. And the way Mitchum brings this world-weary authenticity to the role, it makes Eddie both kind of pathetic and deeply sympathetic at the same time. It's strange. You almost find yourself rooting for this guy.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic for sure.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen another film where a criminal character pulls off that kind of complex empathy?
That's a really good question. It really makes you think about how often these crime films focus on the power and control of the criminal rather than their vulnerability.
Two different perspectives.
So getting back to the film, the review then delves into this whole web of relationships that Eddie's tangled up in.
Okay.
And it really hammers home this theme of betrayal that we talked about.
Right.
So we meet these key characters like Dylan the bartender, played by Peter Boyle.
Okay.
And he's described as just completely two-faced.
Oh, wow.
He's got connections to the police. And the review paints him as this guy who acts like a friend, but is really just another predator.
Oh, that's chilling.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Then there's Jimmy Scalise, the leader of the bank robbers that Eddie's supplying.
Right.
And Jackie Brown, the gun supplier who's just completely unpredictable.
Oh, so there's a lot of shady characters in this film.
Oh, yeah. And even the ATF agent, Foley.
Yeah.
He's not portrayed as this, like, straightforward good guy.
Interesting.
Exactly. It's like the review is saying that it's not just about a few bad apples. No. ATF agent Foley, he kind of represents this whole law enforcement system that's just as ruthless and self-serving as the criminals.
Wow. So it's like a systemic issue.
Yeah. And the review argues that in this world, it's not about morality. It's all about who has the power.
It's a pretty bleak outlook.
It is. Yeah. And this whole depiction of like broken relationships and everyone looking out for themselves, it really drives home the point that in this world, there are no true friends, only survival. Which is kind of ironic considering the film's title.
It is pretty ironic when you think about it.
So moving on to the visual side of things.
Okay.
The review really dives into the film's style. And it sounds like it's crucial to creating this gritty realism.
Okay.
It's described as unflashy, naturalistic with these like muted colors.
So very different from like a Scorsese film.
Yeah, completely different. It's not about being visually stunning.
Right.
It's about reflecting the harsh realities of this world.
That makes sense.
And the review highlights all these authentic Boston locations.
Oh, cool.
Like real streets, diners, hockey rinks.
Why?
It all adds to this feeling that you're watching real life unfold.
It's like you're right there in the thick of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to further immerse you in this world, the review mentions the use of handheld cameras and these long takes.
Interesting.
To create this almost documentary-like realism.
So you feel like a fly on the wall.
Yeah, like you're eavesdropping on these tense conversations.
It's got to be so effective.
It really adds to the film's impact.
Have you ever noticed how specific film techniques can really make you believe in a story?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the way a film is shot can really make or break it.
And this commitment to realism goes beyond the visuals.
Right.
The review points out that even the sound design is very minimalist.
Okay.
There's no big dramatic score. It's all about the dialogue and the ambient sounds.
Yeah.
It's very grounded.
Exactly. And the absence of all those flashy sound effects, it creates this like quiet, suffocating tension. It's not about manufactured thrills.
Right.
It's about the inherent danger and unease of this world.
It's more subtle, but probably more effective in a way.
It sounds like even the pacing of the film is a deliberate choice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the review says it's deliberate and slow.
Okay.
With an emphasis on dialogue and character interactions.
Interesting.
Rather than big action sequences.
So it's not your typical fast-paced crime thriller.
Exactly. It's more about the slow burn.
Right.
And even the action scenes, like the bank robberies, they're described as understated and efficient. There's no over-the-top spectacle.
So it's more realistic.
Exactly. And that makes them all the more unsettling.
I could see that.
The review also points out that there are no big shootouts or car chases.
Really?
Yeah, the violence, when it does happen, it's sudden, brutal, and very understated.
Wow.
It really reinforces the cold, transactional nature of this world.
It's not glamorous at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So when you take all these elements together, some pretty powerful themes start to emerge.
Okay.
And the first one that really jumps out is that ironic title, The Friends of Eddie Coyle.
Right.
It really highlights this whole illusion of friendship in the criminal world.
Yeah, the film seems to completely dismantle any idea of loyalty in this world.
Exactly. It's every man for himself.
Right.
And another big theme the review points out is the futility of crime.
Okay.
Eddie's life isn't one of power and riches.
Right.
It's full of fear, low rewards, and the sense that he can't escape his fate.
It's a far cry from the glamorous life we often see in other crime films.
And then there's this really thought-provoking theme about the blurred lines between criminals and law enforcement.
Oh, interesting.
The review argues that both sides are shown as ruthless and opportunistic. And it even suggests that morality just doesn't factor into the equation.
So it's like a very cynical view of the system.
It is, but it also feels kind of refreshingly honest.
Yeah, I can see that.
The review also draws this really interesting comparison. Okay.
Between Eddie and his crew and those romanticized mobsters in The Godfather.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Eddie and his associates, they're not these big-time players.
Right.
They're just small-time guys struggling to survive.
Yeah.
Which gives the film more of a tragic feel.
That makes sense.
The review even uses the term working-class desperation.
Wow.
Which really grounds the whole story in this, like, social and economic reality.
It adds a whole other layer to it.
Now, the review does acknowledge that some viewers might have some criticisms.
Okay.
But it presents them as, like, deliberate artistic choices.
So not flaws, but intentional decisions.
Exactly. Like the slow pacing. Some people might find it too slow.
Right.
But the review argues that it's essential to the film's realism and character development.
So it serves a purpose.
Right. And it also addresses the lack of emotional catharsis.
Okay.
And the fact that Eddie doesn't really have control over his own fate.
Those are interesting points.
Instead of seeing these as, like, weaknesses.
Yeah. The review frames them as deliberate choices that enhance the film's authenticity.
I see.
And set it apart from those more conventional crime stories.
It's a different approach.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this review,
okay,
what are the big takeaways? What's the lasting impression of the Friends of Eddie Coyle?
Well, the review consistently highlights Robert Mitchum's performance as being absolutely essential to the film's success.
Yeah.
It's described as heartbreaking, restrained, and completely believable.
Yeah, he really disappears into the role.
Another big highlight is that authentic, gritty atmosphere that makes it feel like you're watching a documentary.
It's so immersive.
And the dialogue is just so sharp.
Yeah.
It's full of tension, hidden meanings, and this underlying desperation.
It's like every word matters.
And finally, the review really praises the way the bank robberies are portrayed.
Yeah.
They're so unromanticized and real.
They stick with you.
They do.
So it sounds like the overall message is that The Friends of Eddie Coyle is a masterclass in understated crime cinema. Yeah.
It offers this realistic and unglamorous look into the criminal world.
It's a different kind of crime film.
Yeah, it's not about the glitz and glamour.
And the review considers it one of the most underrated and authentic crime films of the 70s.
Wow.
It sounds like a film that really stays with you.
So for you, the listener,
Yeah.
if you're looking for a crime film that really digs deep and explores the harsh realities of this world,
Yeah.
then The Friends of Eddie Coyle, as this review shows us, offers a really compelling and thought-provoking experience.
It definitely gives you something to think about.
It does. And this brings up a final thought for you.
Okay.
You know how this film focuses on the more ordinary and unglamorous aspects of crime?
Yeah.
And how it features these flawed characters who are far from heroes? Well, does this more grounded approach actually give us a more accurate reflection of reality? And what other films or stories can you think of that challenge our expectations in similar ways?
That's a great question to ponder. It is. It's something to think about.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Looking forward to it.